Hi everyone, this is Caly Person. Thanks so much for joining me today. I have a fun winter birthday card and I've turned it into a shaker using this cool birthday set. This stamp set features a large image for a scene and several cute critters that can be used to create a fun birthday scene. So I'm going to use the penguins and one of the seals that's holding a gift for my scene. I want to keep it at odd numbers as far as critters go, so I decided to use the penguins and that seal as opposed to using the polar bears because I wanted to add color to this card. So I've stamped with VersaFine black ink and I'm going to emboss this with clear embossing powder so that I can make this image Copic friendly by trapping that ink under some embossing. And while I'm stamping, I'm going to go ahead and stamp the background. So I'm using my larger Misty here, and I'm going to take out that foam because I'm using this Reverse All Snowflakes background stamp that's on red rubber. And I'm going to apply my embossing ink just towards the top 2/3 portion of my card panel because I just want the snowflakes in the sky and not towards the bottom where the water line should be. So I've stamped with clear embossing ink and I've added some clear embossing powder and I'm just going to heat set that and then I'll set this panel aside while I color my stamped images. Okay, so to start coloring here, I'm going to start off with my penguins using some dark, cool grays to emulate black, but I'm also going to add some light grays as well. We want to be able to show some shading and roundness to the curvature of these adorable little penguins. So adding other colors and shades is going to help with that. And then also on the white portions of the penguins, I recommend never leaving anything white. So I'm going to add a little bit of the same tones in the cool grays, but just lighter colors. And then I'll dab their cheeks with some dots of pink and really quickly add some orange to their beaks and their feet. Next, I'm going to use some reds for some pops of color on their party hats, as well as on the poles for that iceberg. So I'm just going to use similar colors throughout just so I don't use too many markers and overcomplicate the coloring for myself. And then I've added some blues, some yellows, and I'm coloring this little gift a pink color to make it a little more fun. For the seal, I'm going to use some warm grays. And on this image, I also want to add some texture. So after I colored and blend the whole thing, I'm going to use the darker marker and also add a darker shade to add some texture by adding some dots on his skin, towards the top of his head, and on his back. And that just gives the seal a little bit more texture and interest. Now I'm going to repeat with the red on the poles for the ice and the banner, these little bulbs here. And for that little disco ball, I'm coloring it with some soft grays, but in hindsight, I should have done something more fun with that by using glitter or something shiny like glossy accents. Now for this little igloo and the plate of ice underneath, I'm using some teals. With the darkest shade, I'm going to add some shading towards the crevices on this igloo where the ice blocks meet. Then I'll blend it out with two lighter shades to give it dimension. And I'll repeat this process for that plate of ice. Again, I'm going around the outer edges with that darker color and then blending with the lighter colors towards the center. I actually don't blend all the way into the center because I wanted to leave some white there. It really amplifies the effect of ice and shine and reflection. And once I'm done coloring, I die cut everything off camera and I'll set that aside while we ink blend the background with some color. I'm using some purples and this first color is lilac. I just wanted to add a glow to the center of this card. So I'm going to softly add that color towards the center and then I'll use the darker purple in Iris to ink blend around the outer edges. Now I thought I was going to be happy with two colors, but I decided to add a third color to make it even darker, and that's going to be Galaxy, and you'll see that here in a minute. So I just worked my ink in a counterclockwise motion as well as clockwise to make sure that I get that ink into all areas around the embossed areas. So now I'm going to ink blend with that darker color. Again, that color is Galaxy. And I know I sped through the coloring pretty fast and also this ink blending. So if you're interested in the color combinations that I used or any products that I use, be sure to check out the links below. Everything will be linked for your convenience. And I'll also have them listed on the coordinating blog post as well. Now for the water, I'm going to use some teal, and I'm using teal instead of blue because I opted for teal on the Copic colored images. And I just wanted that color to carry over as, again, it's reflecting water and ice. So I think teal is a great color for that, but you can definitely use blue. Once I'm done ink blending, I'm going to trim down this panel a little bit, a total of 1/4 inch off the long side and the short side. To make infinity shaker cards, I like to repurpose old packaging. I simply cut off the fused edges on the sides, top and bottom, leaving me with 2 pieces, and then I can use them for these infinity shakers. And I like to cut the corners off of mine. I feel like it's a little cleaner than folding over flaps of plastic or cellophane. So I cut off all the corners. Then I can add some double-sided adhesive to the back and fold those flaps over that we created from cutting the corners off, and that creates an envelope for the shaker bits or embellishments that you fill your shaker up with. So I start with the bottom flap first, making sure that that's secure before I do the sides. Once the bottom is secure, I'll do the sides here, so I'll add my double-sided adhesive to both sides. Then I'll fold over that cellophane onto that adhesive to make an envelope. And I say envelope because the top hasn't been sealed, leaving an opening so that you can easily add embellishments. For this shaker card, I'm using the Dusk embellishments. It's a pretty icy bluish purple, so I thought that was the perfect mix for this shaker card. And once I'm happy with the amount of embellishments that I put inside the shaker card, I'm going to seal it by adding another strip of double-sided adhesive at the top, and then sealing it by folding over that last flap of cellophane that still remains. And here we have a nice low bulk shaker card with a wraparound infinity style shaker. Now it's time to add my images and create a little birthday scene. I'm using some thin 3D foam squares. I find that this is a great adhesive to use on acetate or cellophane like this. I added the largest image first at the center. That kind of breaks up the image between the sky and the ice floor that I ink blended. And then I'll add my little critters on there. And to add a sentiment, I'm going to emboss a white sentiment over black cardstock. So I've stamped that with some clear embossing ink, and then I'll sprinkle my white embossing powder over that and then heat set it and trim it down. Again, I'm going to use some thin 3D foam squares to add my sentiment. Then I'll adhere this to a card base using some more Terrific tape or double-sided adhesive. I like to apply this adhesive right over that cellophane that's holding down the shaker portions, and I think this just gives it extra security so nothing falls apart when you go to adhere this to a card base. And then I'll finish by adding some white gel highlights to all of my images. It just makes everything a little bit more interesting, gives everything a little bit more texture. So I'm just adding little lines to accentuate curves here and there, as well as some dots on the seal, again for texture. And that finishes my card for today. I hope you enjoyed this cool birthday infinity shaker card. Again, if there's anything that I used today that you're interested in, everything will be linked below. Thanks so much for stopping by and for spending some time with me. I appreciate it so much, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye, everyone.